Hi, good afternoon, everyone. I'm Jason Marczak. I'm the Deputy Director of the Adrienne Arsht Latin America Center here at the Atlantic Council, and thank you all so much for joining for actually what is a very momentous occasion. It's the first ever Google Hangout that the Adrienne Arsht Latin America Center is doing. For those of you who might not be familiar with the Latin America Center, we are housed within the Atlantic Council, which is one of the preeminent think tanks, foreign policy think tanks here in Washington with a global footprint. The Latin America Center, we were started 2 years ago with the idea of talking about the transformations that are occurring throughout Latin America and why Latin America needs to be increasingly thought of as a political and economic and social partner for the U.S., Europe, and the broader global community. So we like to really focus on those innovations and transformations that are happening across the region. And when you look across the region, one country that in particular is showing a lot of innovation is Mexico, not only insofar as how policy is being changed at a federal level, but really insofar as the innovators themselves in Mexico. People like Pablo Salazar, Hugo Moreno, and people like Dantus, who is one of the leaders insofar as being able to fund these innovations. So this is what we're doing today. In this hangout, we're focusing on health as part in this hangout. This is the first in our series of hangouts. We'll be doing another one in January, so I hope you can join us for that. These hangouts are leading to a publication that is being authored by Arturo Franco, very well known in the field of innovation, that we're going to be releasing at a conference in Mexico City on April 5th, 2016. So save the date. If you're in Mexico City, hope you can join us. If you're not, hope you can travel to Mexico City to join us. The way we're going to do this is Marcus will speak first. He'll speak for about 10 minutes to give an overview on innovation entrepreneurship. We'll then open up to questions. You can either submit your questions via the Google platform or via Twitter. And then after the round of questions, we'll then have Pablo and Hugo talk about their personal stories and experience in innovation, then open up to more questions. This will go for about an hour total, and hope you can stay with us throughout. So to start off, please, and as well, if you have questions that you want to tweet, please tweet those questions to AC Innovation MX. And before handing it over to our speakers, I also want to thank our funder in this, which is Deloitte, and our many partners in this hangout, which includes Startup Mexico, Ashoka, Partners in Health, Fundación Idea, Results for Development, the Institute of the Americas, and Miami University's Miami Institute for the Americas. So starting off with Marcus Dantus is a renowned serial entrepreneur, an angel investor with 2 decades of experience creating, managing, funding, and mentoring startups in Mexico as well as the United States. Marcus is currently the CEO and co-founder of Startup Mexico, the first entrepreneurship super campus in Mexico. And in Marcus's free time, which I don't really think there's much of, but in that free time, he's also a visiting professor on entrepreneurship and innovation. Marcus has a presentation to share with us, so I'm going to turn it over to Marcus.
Perfect. Thank you very much for the invitation. And I'm sorry my voice is a little bit gone from the weekend in San Miguel, so I hope you can hear me all right. You guys are seeing the first chart, right?
Yes.
So I start like this because this chart is by the OCDE, and it basically tells that Mexico, out of all the countries that they monitor, is the country that actually has the largest percentage of new businesses as a total of as the total base of businesses in Mexico. So in Mexico, we already have this chip of creating new companies. The problem that we have is that these companies don't necessarily transcend and become large companies, and they usually become either lifestyle companies or just self-employment for people. So there's an incredible opportunity for education, for educating these entrepreneurs into creating and growing these companies and showing them how their companies can be more relevant and how they could transcend. The second chart, again by the OCDE, is a chart that shows that Mexico is the country that works the most hours of any country in the world. And the Mexicans And immediately when I show this, what comes to mind is that there's an efficiency problem, a productivity problem, and that is true. But here again, I think there's a great opportunity for educating Mexicans into how to properly use this time, how to become more efficient. And we're starting with a great base because we are not afraid of work. If we could work more efficiently, that's not that hard to do. Finally, there's creativity. Mexicans are very creative, and they have a way of solving problems that's unique to Mexicans. For example, I love this one. Huh? We have an opportunity. We have a great way of using one product and changing it to another product, and using it for a completely different thing.
Marcus, we can't see you changing the slides. Can you?
Oh, you can? Where are you? Which slide are you on?
We can right now see the one with the red pickup truck. Now the one hours worked annually.
Okay, so let's start here. So I was talking about, there should be a red pickup truck there.
No, we're on employer enterprise birth rate.
Oh, so it's a slow connection. Tell me when it changes.
It's not changing, so maybe you might want to just talk without. Now it's on the pickup truck, but you might want to think about just not using the PowerPoint and just speaking.
Oh, okay. So maybe when I put it in full screen, it doesn't change. So anyway, for example, you see this one?
Yeah.
Okay.
Three men on the pickup on the wheelbarrows.
Right. So I was saying that we have this innate ability of changing the use of one product to another. So I'm just showing you some examples of Mexican creativity, or even using the product for what it was intended, like a stereo is a stereo, for example, or an oven is an oven, or an air conditioner, and even in some cases define laws like physical laws, or simply laws. In Mexico, I remember very vividly when they basically said that we need to wear the seatbelt, and the next day, everywhere in Mexico, everybody was selling T-shirts with a seatbelt painted on them. So that to me is proof of creativity, but that's not necessarily innovation. That is, again, a great opportunity to educate people into using this creativity to create products and services that can solve worldwide problems and not just their own personal problems. And I think that's going to be a big change when we start teaching innovation techniques in school. So, what has happened in the last decade in Mexico? For starters, there's been a lot of programs. I'm not going to go deep into this, but there's been a lot of programs by the Ministry of Economy, the National Council of Science and Technology, the Mexico's Development Bank, NAFINSA, that have pushed innovation and that have pushed research and development, especially in areas like technology and biomedicine and biomedical, etc. Just to give you an example, in Mexico there were no incubators in 2003. By 2009 there were 500 incubators in universities. Mexico is that the Ministry of Economy changed one of its sites, which was used to call the Undersecretary of SMBs in Mexico. It changed its name now to the National Entrepreneurial Institute. And why that is relevant is because now we're not focusing just on creating companies, but we're focusing on creating companies that can transcend. Another example is that in the last 10 years, Mexico has created over 180 industrial and technology parks. So they have created this great infrastructure for research and development. On the culture side, every single contest, event, accelerator, incubator, all these programs have now arrived in Mexico. And it's not only these programs that have arrived in Mexico, but Mexicans have created their own programs, their own incubators, their own accelerators, their own events, their own get-togethers, and it hardly a day passes that there's no event where entrepreneurs can meet investors or can meet engineers, can meet designer, and that is changing the culture of Mexicans. Now students don't just think about graduating and getting a job, but they think about graduating and actually creating a company and generating jobs. Another important change in Mexico is
can we wrap this up in about a minute?
All right. The other one is talent. Mexico now produces a bunch of engineers, more engineers than anybody in the world per capita. And it's not just engineers. We produce, the creative class in Mexico is growing really fast. The image of Mexico has changed. You're talking about the new China, the Aztec Tiger, the next Steve Jobs, the rise of Mexico. So the image of Mexico outside is changing. And finally, let me just put this chart. I hope it changes, but there were 2 funds in 2008, and I'm sorry I cannot put it in a big screen, but 14 funds in 2012 and 60 funds in 2015. So the amount of capital is exploding in Mexico, and with that, entrepreneurship is exploding. So that's my take on the Mexican ecosystem.
Thanks, Marcus. If you have questions, you just submit it through the platform or use the Innovation MX. Marcus, I'm going to take the prerogative as the moderator to ask you the first question, which is, there's obviously a lot of new funds that are in Mexico, and this is great. But how does the resources that are now available for innovators, for entrepreneurs, match up with what's actually needed on the ground?
Well, I think that this is a learning process and a learning curve, and I don't think that they necessarily match today, but I think that they will, and I think that as risk aversion lowers in Mexico, as failure starts to be tolerated, as more people get into the game, and as we generate success stories, there'll be a better match.
Okay, there's a question coming in from Twitter from David, who's asking about if there's specific characteristics or personality traits that you look for in an entrepreneur that you're looking to invest in.
Personally, I look for somebody that listens, that is not, stubborn, that is optimistic, that has a capacity to improvise, which in Mexico is very important, and that is, that tries to really make things happen, make things happen. Somebody that can make things happen.
And another question here from Alex. Is there innovation without entrepreneurship? Is that possible?
Yes, of course. One of the ways, I don't think that there is innovation if the product is not adopted in the market and if the product doesn't reach society. But I do think, because to me innovation is not about invention, it's about adoption. But there is innovation that doesn't necessarily have to make you a millionaire. That's a question.
All right, thanks, Marcus. I'm sure there's more questions. We can save those questions for Marcus for the end. But I want to now have 2 very well-known innovators share their personal stories, and that's Pablo Salazar and Hugo Moreno, who are joining us and have achieved incredible innovation in the healthcare sector specifically. We'll start with Pablo, and Pablo is a managing partner at NXTP Labs, which is the most active acceleration and early stage fund in Latin America. Previously, Pablo was previously a co-founder at Naranja, if I'm pronouncing that right, Pablo, Ventures, and a principal at Ignia Partners, which is, as many of you know, the world's biggest impact investment fund. He's also a board member at Fagro, Ver de Verdad, Provive, Doc Solutions, active member of Endeavor, along with many other things in his background. So, Paulo, if you can start and speak for about 10 minutes or however much, if you need less than that as well, and then we'll turn over to Hugo after that.
Hi, everyone. How are you? And first of all, thank you very much for the invitation. And hello to Hugo and Marcus. It's a pleasure to share with you this conversation. Well, if the main question was before, what is innovation for us? I am, as you know, on the funding side, on the investor side, in this entrepreneurial ecosystem, and the definition that we use is the one that we got from businessdictionary.com. So hopefully it's right. And the definition for us is the process of translating an idea or invention into a good or service that creates value for which customers will pay. And that definition for us has different components that are important. First of all, it's a process, so it's not something that just happens from one moment to the other. It's not a picture; it's a movie, and it's a process to transform an idea. Normally comes from an entrepreneur, or it can, as Marcus was saying, come from other sources. People that are currently working for big corporations, people at governments, people at NGOs. So the source can be, again, an entrepreneur or an entrepreneur or anyone can innovate. We constantly innovate in our lives and in our businesses. But then it comes the interesting part, that really innovation, to be transcendent, it has to create value. And that value can and must be perceived by someone as something valuable, and someone must be able and should be able to pay for it and willing to pay for it. So for us, when this cycle is closed, in terms of having the idea that finds a market that fulfills a need, that creates value, and someone pays for it, then for us it's a relevant innovation. And we have been working in the last 4 years trying to find those innovators in Latin America and provide them with capital, knowledge, and connections. That's what the funds do. So what we do is we do open programs in Latin America in 4 cities where we have open invitations for entrepreneurs. They apply to our programs, and then we invest on them a minimum of $25,000. They come to our programs. They stay with us between 4 and 6 months, and within that program we provide them with the tools to improve their businesses or ideas and to prepare themselves to be funded. As you know, and again we go back to the process of innovation. Innovation needs funding in different stages. So we are located at the very initial stage when we provide the seed money that these need. We have a fund on top of our acceleration program that helps us to be able to follow on those companies that start providing the value that someone is willing to pay for, and that start developing interesting innovations and products and services. And we normally co-invest with other funds or angel investors on those companies up to $1 million. And so far we have done 160 investments. Of those 160s, we have followed on more than 60 now, and some of those companies are really making it big now. Some of them are valued over $100 million on the latest funding rounds. So you see ideas or innovations that start from scratch, and a couple of years later they are producing value for, as I said, over $100 million, at least on the investor's perspective. As you can imagine, we have investments in many verticals, many industries, from agriculture to satellites. So we have seen many innovators create things in different industries, and that's fascinating. Latin America and Mexico, as you know, is very diverse. So we have seen innovators in almost every field that you can imagine: finance, human resources, advertising, entertainment, etc. We believe that Latin America and Mexico are today in a very special moment in terms of innovation, because as Marcos said, the entrepreneurs or people who innovate today do have access to resources that were not there before. They have access to people willing to help them through mentorship. They have access to capital. They have access to markets. Corporations are now jumping in on this innovation wagon and opening their doors on open innovation strategies in order to help them to consume the products that innovators are creating. Universities are finally aligning with the movement, with the innovation movement, and government has been very active in terms of creating programs and platforms for these entrepreneurs to succeed. And what we have seen lately is a virtual cycle where innovators that make it, like Marcus, for example, then come back to the ecosystem and give back. And that is a phenomenon that we didn't have before in Mexico or Latin America, and that's creating a big change, because now successful and experienced entrepreneurs come back to the ecosystem and give not only money but mostly experience to new people. So there is a shortcut for people who want to innovate, because they receive direct mentoring for people that have made it before. We have seen things in Mexico in the last couple of months that we didn't see before. For example, family offices, which is a very traditional source of capital, investing on entrepreneurial ventures funded previously by other funds. So I agree with what Marcus said. We are in a very, very special moment. This is a great moment to start a business, but this is also a great moment to invest on a business. So what I believe the challenge today is that we need to balance the ecosystem and be able to provide the funding and the connections and the knowledge to these new entrepreneurs that are coming and help them to be successful.
Great. Thanks, Pablo. I have a great presentation. I have a bunch of questions for you. I know that our people who are watching this do as well, because we've been getting questions by Twitter. But before going to questions, I want to turn over to Hugo Moreno. Hugo founded Ver de Verdad 3 years ago. It's an incredibly innovative business model which provides low-cost eyeglasses to Mexico's most needy. It offers free eye exams, and there are currently 19 shops, if my numbers are correct, Hugo, across the country. Hugo has a BS in Civil Engineering from the Instituto Tecnológico de Estudios Superiores de Monterrey, and he has an MBA as well. So, Hugo, I'll turn over to you to explain your personal story and the idea behind your innovation and how you got started.
Thank you, Jason. How are you? Well, what we do is we sell prescription glasses starting at $14 US. We opened yesterday our store number 26. So we have 26 stores right now. And in March 2011, I was giving a conference at Harvard Business School. And it was a very special day for me because it was my last day as the CEO of Salud Digna, a nonprofit that offers healthcare services for really low-income people in Mexico. And I ran this institution for 4 years. I did a really successful transformation. And one of the things I did in Salud Digna was introducing prescription glasses at a really, really low price. I figured out lenses come in different prescriptions in a round shape like this. So I figured out that if we bought some machines to scan the frames and then cut the lenses, we could have a complete set of lenses for our cost lower than $2 cost for us. This costs like $1 and the frame costs $1. So with this, we went from being no one to be the second provider of eyeglasses in Mexico. We were doing 280,000 pair of glasses per year, when the leader in Mexico does 500,000. So I figured out there was a really important market in Mexico that wasn't being attended. When I was giving this conference at Harvard Business School, I mentioned that it was my last day at Salud Digna. And after the conference, I knew Michael Chu. Michael is a professor at Harvard Business School, and he's a guru of doing business at the base of the pyramid. So Michael asked me, what are you going to do next? And I talked to him about my project, about the idea of starting a low-cost optical chain in Mexico. I told him that my dream was to make the larger. Do you hear me? Okay. I told him that my dream was to make the first low-cost optical chain in Mexico that attended 1 million people per year. So Michael told me that he was going to be in Mexico. This was on Thursday. He told me I will be next Tuesday in Mexico. What are you going to do? I would like to see your business plan. I didn't have a business plan. I just had the idea on my mind. So I came back from Boston to Mexico doing my business plan on the plane. I presented the business plan to Michael. He introduced me to Ignia, and at the first day, Ignia told me that they didn't invest on the startups. This was in March 2011. By October 2011, they invested on us $3 million to start our company. We opened our first store 1.5 months after the investment, and we soon realized that the market that we were talking about was there. It was really there. Some people think that the low cost is selling at a lower price, and it's not just selling at a lower price. To be successful in the low cost market, you need to make the market bigger. Right now, 53% of the people we attend in Ver de Verdad is people that are not using glasses. Prescription glasses, and they don't use glasses because of two main things. One is because they cannot afford to pay for a pair of glasses, and another is because they don't know they need glasses. So that's why we give pre-eye examination. That way, many people can realize if they need glasses or not. In Mexico, currently, 15 million pair of glasses are sold annually. But the potential market, if you cross information with the United States or Chile, the potential market is about 26 million. So there is 11 million pair of glasses that no one is selling in Mexico. That's a huge opportunity in our business. Right now, as I said, we have 26 stores. We have 120 people working with us. We are in 5 different cities. All our stores are EBITDA positive. We have a really good model right now that creates a huge social impact, and that is also really profitable. Last month, we raised the funds or the capital needed. We went for a second round of capital. We raised last month the funds or the capital needed to open 300 stores. So right now for us, money won't be the restriction. And what I tell my team is, if money is not the restriction anymore, what is the restriction? And I believe the restriction is on us, on what we are capable of achieving. and what we are capable of doing. So I think this has been a really successful story, and we are constructing a really successful story also. Our dream from the beginning was to build a larger retail chain, optical retail chain in Mexico, not because of the number of branches, but because of the people we will attend. I think one of the things I've learned through this journey is that success can be designed. You just have to start from the end. Figure out how you want that end to be, and then come to a present, and then you will have a clear idea of where do you want to go. I think in Mexico we are living right now in a country of really a lot of opportunities. There is money out there ready to invest in projects like us. You just have to have a really good business model that has the market. You have to have the capacity to execute that model, to scale it, and also the trust you give to investors is really, really important. Working with investors has been challenging, and I've been learning to work with investors, and it's not the money because of the money. It's also, you have to choose really, really well who are you going to partner with. And in our case, I've been really lucky at this. We have really good investors from our first round of capital, and then right now with our second round of capital, we're really happy with the investors we have, because they are part of what we have achieved. Not only because of the money, but also because they are really clever people, and what they have put on our company. One of the things I always...
Hugo, we have another minute if you want to wrap up in about a minute.
Okay. I said, many people say that our business is really, many people may copy it. I always compare our business to a restaurant. Everyone maybe here that is watching us can put a restaurant, we can lease a space, we can hire a chef, but making that restaurant successful, and then moving to another location or putting a second branch and making that other branch successful, and then maybe going to another city and make that model successful. That's the magic that it's on us, and that not everyone can. Thank you.
Well, Hugo, first, thank you, and thank you. I mean, congratulations on the excellent work. I mean, I think it's just incredibly impressive how you saw this opportunity to really bring millions and millions of people who couldn't probably see the computer screen or see the bus stop or whatnot to be able to have that type of access. So congratulations. I have a bunch of questions. We've also gotten many questions over Twitter, Pablo, while you were speaking, and Hugo, while you were speaking. I'm going to take my prerogative as the moderator to ask the first question. And I think, Hugo, I have a couple questions for you, but I think one is, you mentioned how working with investors can be challenging and how it's so important to pick the right investors, right? Because investors, in many ways, become your mentors as well. So what was your process? How did you go about choosing, which investors to work with? What was your selection criteria?
Well, I had the chance to choose the first time, and the second time I had the chance to choose for 2 times. And I think that the first thing that I do too is the feeling you have. And this is not something, this is something you feel. Do I fit with this person, or I don't fit with this person? So I think the first thing is fitting, and knowing that you will do something with someone that is better than doing some things. Not in the core business, but for example, in the strategy, or that is better than doing in some other things that will help you. Doing things with people that are better than you is really great.
And Hugo, or Pablo, I think one of the things that, Pablo, you mentioned during your presentation which I find very interesting, is this new phenomenon in Mexico where innovators are coming back into the ecosystem that really didn't happen before. What do you see? What was the transformation that has allowed that to start to happen? Has there been some type of change in psyche, or is it more just because there are more innovators, more are naturally entering back into the ecosystem?
No, I think there have been a couple of things that have helped a lot. For example, Endeavor has been operating in Mexico for the last 10 years, and for me that has been fundamental on creating a mentorship culture that it might not have existed before. For example, Hugo is an Endeavor entrepreneur, but he's also a mentor within the network. And we have seen many of our friends coming from Endeavor and then giving back to society. In my experience, a couple of years ago, when we started Naranja Ventures, I started it actually with an Endeavor entrepreneur. And we were challenged by Endeavor to see if we could start a funding vehicle in Mexico, a fund with a successful entrepreneur, in this case Arturo Galvan from Naranja, and it was very useful to do that. In our case at NXTP Labs, for example, we are 5 partners. It's 4 Argentinians and myself. But from the 4 Argentinians, all of them are entrepreneurs. 2 of them are Endeavor entrepreneurs. Myself, I've been an entrepreneur a couple of times, not a successful one, but I've been an entrepreneur. And now we are back on the funding side and on the mentorship side, trying to be intermediaries between the investors and the entrepreneurs.
Marcos, there's a question for you here from Arturo, which is about the mortality rate for startups in Mexico is almost twice as that in the U.S. before reaching 5 years. What are some of the principal causes for this?
Well, the first one is that most of the companies in Mexico are not well planned. There's a difference between creating companies and creating, entrepreneurial companies, and this is very recent in Mexico. But the mortality rate of entrepreneurial companies anywhere, including Silicon Valley, is around 90%. So I don't know how we can double that. I do think, however, that in Mexico it should be a little bit lower because there's less competition and there's more problems to be solved. So we should shoot for somewhere under that 90%.
Okay. And then there's I think another question kind of somewhat related to this, but the public policies that exist, and what are some of the policies in place that can boost innovation and entrepreneurship? What are some of the things that are working well in Mexico? Because Mexico is doing a lot of things that are working very well at the federal level. And at the state level as well. I mean, the state of Jalisco, for example, right? But there are still so many impediments. So, can you talk a little bit, maybe Marcus or Pablo as well, or maybe both of you, about what you see as some of the public policies that are working well, and if you had your wish of 1 or 2 additional things that can be done at a federal state level, what would those be? And this question, the basis of this question comes from Douglas.
Okay.
So, you want to go back?
Pablo, why don't you start with Marcus?
Okay, perfect. We have seen many programs that are working on the federal level. As Marcus mentioned, on the first week of the new presidency, they launched the National Entrepreneurship Institute, and that institute has developed hundreds of programs, and they have opened hundreds of processes in order for entrepreneurs, funds, or other entities to receive funding or help or promotion. They have done very well in the promotion side. For example, now they organized events like the National Entrepreneurship Week. The Startup Nations just happened in Mexico because they brought it, and they have been very involved in the international events and again promoting Mexico as a destination for entrepreneurs and investors. But there are also the programs. For example, we are now co-investing with the governments. We applied to one of the programs and we received a $3 million co-investment agreement with the government. So we put $3 million in Mexico and they put $3 million, and that's very significant. And they become our limited partners in the fund. They expect return, so it's not money that they're giving away, but they expect a limited return, and then they share the upside with us as fund managers. And that's been promoting the creation of new funds. We went from 3 or 4 funds now to almost 30. Many of them are working, some of them are still forming, but that's been very, very impressive in terms of providing more opportunities for funds to be created, fund managers to learn and develop themselves, and it has expanded the offer for entrepreneurs in terms of capital. And Marcus knows other examples.
Marcus?
I mean, look, the government has created a lot of programs now, and they have been working and they have been pushing. There's a lot of networking now and a lot of talks with academics, and the academy is now getting into the entrepreneurship cycle. What we are missing, in my opinion, is a couple of things. I think that we need the industry to participate in this, and very seldom does the industry really participate in the ecosystem. So we are short one leg, but this has to be about academy, industry and government. And in Mexico, industry is not very active in mergers and acquisitions, and we still have a lot of monopolies, and they are not very active in the entrepreneurial community. And this is one thing we're trying to bring to the table. Talking about my wishes, let me give you a very good example of a policy that worked very well in Mexico, and I think that they should repeat it on the entrepreneurial side. A couple of years ago, 10, 20 years ago, the Mexican film industry existed. And there was an article that came out in the fiscal law that was Article 186. Now it's Article 186. Originally it was 226. And basically it allows companies to deduct 100% of whatever they invest in a movie out of the money that they owe to taxes. And this created and spawned a movie industry in a very few months. Now the problem with this is that movies don't necessarily generate a return. Not everybody watches Mexican movies, and there's not a big audience. But imagine if they would do this law, and this is what we're talking to the government now, where they allow corporations to deduct 100% of what they invest in entrepreneurs or in funds that will invest in entrepreneurs. And this will get the industry in the ecosystem, and this will multiply the money available by many times.
Thanks. Hugo, a question for you about your particular story, and what that question is, you're able to provide these eyeglasses at such a low cost. So one is, how are you able to do that at such a low cost? And what were why didn't anyone do this before you? Are there structural impediments? And just kind of in the interest of time, just to tie that together with a question from Sebastian as well, which is, what guarantees as well the innovation benefits low-income individuals, especially those in the informal sector? So I think your case, Hugo, is one in which you really are aimed at low-income individuals. But how do you really reach those low-income individuals, especially those in the informal sector? And then the other question I got was how are you able to do this when others? What were some of the impediments why others maybe hadn't been able to do this before?
Okay. Well, the optical industry is a transforming industry. Since Chinese product is available in the world, the cost of making a frame or the cost of making the glasses is a fraction of what it was 10, 15 years ago. So it's the cost since the introduction of Chinese products, costs have dropped. And also we realized that if we skip the process of taking our glasses to a third-party shop, and we did it ourselves, we could drop our costs in a really significant way. These were the two things we realized. But it's not only selling at a lower price, because many people think that low prices, try to cost your prices. Because if you sell at a lower price, you will also have a lower margin per length per unit sold. So what you need to do is sell more volume in order to be self-sustainable. So what we do, the huge opportunity here in our market is the people that are not using glasses right now. That's the way we are able to do to make this market bigger. And what we do is location is really, really important for us. We are in downtown. Our stores are located in downtown. The walking traffic is more than 1,000 people per hour outside our stores. So there's a huge amount of people walking outside our stores. You look at one of our stores and you will see some tests, vision tests, so you can realize if you need or don't need glasses. That's the way we get our customers.
Well, so you're literally just walking down the street and you can do your own test and see if you need to come into the store.
Yes, we tell you, we put some steps on the floor and we said, if you can see here, okay, you're okay. If you cannot see, please come inside because you might have a problem. And there's a huge people every day that are coming, walking. 50% of the people that we get into our stores is because they saw the vision test and they realized that they were not, their vision was not clear, they come to our store.
That's very cool. Another question, and I think this is probably a question is particularly relevant given all of the people who are on this Google Hangouts, but it's a question about there's a feeling from Cassandra that innovation is very male-dominated. So I guess there are 4 males on this Hangout, and what are the thoughts? What type of gender balance really does exist insofar as innovators? Maybe Pablo and Marcus, you can address this from an entrepreneurship and investment perspective, and Hugo maybe addresses from your perspective as well. Maybe Pablo, do you want to start off?
Yeah, I think it's a sad reality that, as in many other sectors in the world, or most of the sectors, the gender parity is not as it should be. It should be 50-50, as just the world is. But I do believe that the trend and the trajectory is correct. And we have seen in our portfolio, we have almost 400 founders in terms of the teams, and we have around 30% of them are women, and they are very good. They're very good companies as the other ones. And we've been pushing the women participation through a platform that we have called We Exchange with the Inter-American Development Bank. But I think it's a matter of time, and it's a short time that they will be represented as they should be. There's a lot of initiatives like Victoria 147 in Mexico, or Epic Queen, also working on integrating women to the entrepreneurial world. On the funding side, it's the same. It's underrepresented, sadly, but we are working hard. We have one female partner, and hopefully we will have more in the future. And many funds are now very conscious about becoming gender balanced.
Marcus, Hugo, do you want to add anything else?
I think a great example is I think a great example is Endeavor. Endeavor was created by a woman, and is run in Mexico by a woman also. So I think there's opportunity for both, and women are doing a great job in this. It's not only from us.
Marcus?
This is about empowering women and about them feeling empowered. And the trend is that they are feeling more empowered every year. And the trend is coming. We ourselves Out of all the companies we created, more than half have women in them, and about a quarter are actually led by women. So I'm not worried about women participation. It's happening and it'll grow.
One of the things, so that kind of leads to another question from Anna, which is about creating innovators moving forward, and is how can we create young innovators? If there are, universities are, having increasingly implementing programs designed to spark greater innovation, but should we really be starting these programs before university, at the secondary school level, or even outside of the formal schools situation? Are there other things that can be done in the broader society to really create this culture of innovation and this sense of being able to find problems or challenges in society and come on your own with a solution to some of those challenges? So a question on how early should we be starting, and what more could be done to foster more young innovators?
Without a doubt, it has to start as early as we can. Yeah. Actually, education needs to change. We no longer give data to people because the data you have on your cell phone. I mean, you don't need to remember data. They're accessible. What we need to give people is how to solve problems, how to spot problems, ideation, and how to search for solutions. And all those things are part of the innovation problems, and the innovation techniques and the innovation education. And I think that is where education should go, and it definitely needs to go there in Mexico and in most emerging markets, Pablo, as early as it can.
Yeah, Pablo, have you seen anything that's working well?
Yes, we have seen many initiatives. Again, going back to Epic Queen, working with little girls, teaching them how to code. We have seen many initiatives working in Mexico in the robotics side, both private and government sponsored. We have seen in the schools, after-school programs working very well in terms of helping people to think innovatively. Innovation is a lot about leadership and self-awareness, and the schools are working on that. I agree with Marcos, there is a lot still to be done. And also, not only provide them the culture, but the tools